Yesterday afternoon, an article I wrote went up on alternate.org, and it's about the Trump descent into hyper-authoritarianism. And I listed a set of characteristics that we saw when Italy went fascist, that we saw when Spain went fascist, that we saw when Venezuela went neo-fascist, commie-fascist, whatever you want to call it, that we saw in Mugabe's government, that we're seeing with Duterte in the Philippines. We saw it with Erdogan in Turkey. We saw it with Viktor Orban in Hungary. Every single one of these things, pretty much in this order. Number one, as Eisenhower talked about, or excuse me, as Franklin Roosevelt talked about in 1944, lie often and lie big. For example, last night, Donald Trump told a whole series of lies in his rally there in Tennessee on behalf of Marsha Blackburn. We can get into those a little later on. Number two, consolidate power while challenging or co-opting the institutions that might hold you accountable. That would be like the courts. Number three, attack the press. This is something that autocrats and authoritarians always do. Number four, vilify protesters and political enemies. Number five, scapegoat minority groups to rile up a mob mentality against them. Number six, elevate one religion that you can control and reward while trashing others. Number seven, co-opt and make institutions of military and police power into loyal sycophants by, for example, exempting police unions from your crackdown on state employees like Scott Walker did. And, talking how much you love the beat cops, and finally ignore competence and incompetence. Only loyalty matters. Oh, and foster a sense of helplessness among the opposition. So those are the characteristics that I'm seeing. And let's get Julio Rivera in here, the editorial director of Reactionary Times, columnist with Newsmax, right-wing news and politics. ReactionaryTimes.com is his website. His Twitter handle is it's Julio. Julio, welcome back to the program.
Hey, how are you today, Tom?
Great to have you with us. So does it concern you that these cardinal characteristics of authoritarian rule that are popping up all over the world are being run through by the Trump administration as if they had just, yesterday read The Prince by Machiavelli and said, hey, here's our manual?
Oh, well, Tom, I kind of parsed through your alternate piece there, and, I was quite wordy, and I didn't really grasp, or I didn't really understand where you were taking it, to be honest with you. If you look at Trump, his presidency has been about deregulating, so less government intrusion into the life of citizens.
Or fewer government protections from the predations of corporations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I also wanted to make this point as well. Look no further than his Supreme Court nomination, Judge Neil Gorsuch, who's always been a champion for limiting the power of the executive branch and maintaining the separation of powers.
And giving that power over to big corporations. And that was one of the points in the article, is that, you trash the judiciary. Mitch McConnell refused to allow President Barack Obama to have his constitutionally mandated appointment to the Supreme Court. And so instead, we get Neil Gorsuch, as you point out. I mean, that's one of the things that tells me that McConnell and Trump are running the fascists' playbook.
Well, I mean, the Senate also has the power to advise and consent when it comes to things like that. So if they didn't want to bring up, the Barack Obama nominee, to a vote, I mean, that's something that was kind of discretionary. And
I'm saying McConnell is complicit in this fascism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well.
And it blows my mind that a conservative is not freaked out about the possibility of fascism.
Well, because I don't believe that that's a realistic possibility. The other thing I wanted to bring up, too, because I did, in particular, notice something about your piece that you put up yesterday regarding Charlottesville. You're misrepresenting what happened in Charlottesville, because the violence that was precipitated in Charlottesville only happened because Michael Signer, the Charlottesville mayor, who wanted to set up Charlottesville as a resistance city to the president, had his police walk the two opposing groups together and then told them to stand down. And the other element of Charlottesville as well is that it was funded leftist agitators. They showed up on Saturday that caused the commotion. On Friday, when that weekend started in the original protest, began, and it was just the anti take down the statue protesters there wasn't any violence. It was only when the left showed up.
So let me get this straight, Julio.
started.
You're celebrating a bunch of white guys walking down the street with tiki torches chanting, blacks will not replace us, you will not replace us, Jews will not replace us. You're celebrating that?
Listen, I'm not celebrating it, but they went through the proper, appropriate legal channels to go ahead and legally obtain a permit to protest.
I'm sorry, there was no permit granted to run down Heather Heyer with a car.
No, they're absolutely.
And that's what I was talking about. And the point that I made about that is that if you Google Heather Heyer's name along with the word libtard, you get. Did you try that? You get all these neo-Nazi sites calling her.
One thing I haven't Googled.
You get all these. I mean, right up at the very top of all the hits, you get all these neo-Nazi sites calling her a fat pig, and she was paid by George Soros, and she's probably Jewish, and I mean, just all this just vile hatred coming out from your side, and I don't get why anybody would defend that.
You can't sit there and marry. You can't marry the Daily Stormer and the neo-Nazi movement and white supremacy to American conservatism.
Then why have all those groups endorsed Donald Trump?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Of course you know, Julio.
By leftist elements. Look at the guy that's running in Illinois that we've talked about. That's an actual white supremacist or whoever he was that's running in the congressional race in Illinois. The state GOP is not backing his race, but he decided to declare himself a Republican.
What does that have to do? I mean, you're making my point here, Julio. Of course a racist is going to declare himself a Republican. You think he's going to declare himself a Democrat? I mean, the Democrats left behind racism in 1965.
The Democrats were the party that fought for racism and Jim Crow laws, and the party that filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act for almost 2 months. That wasn't the Republicans that did it. It was the Democrats.
That's what I just said. The Democratic Party set aside racism in 1965 when Lyndon Johnson told Bill Moyers, if I sign this piece of
memo in the 90s when he was a senator in a leadership position under Clinton.
When LBJ signed the Civil Rights Act and told Bill Moyers in his office, when I sign this thing, the Democratic Party is going to lose the South for a generation. Well, it's been 2 generations, arguably 3 generations since then. But LBJ was right.
What's voting Democrat for 200 years. But that's another story.
Yeah, the Democratic Party from the from the founding of the Republic, up until the 1960s, had been the party that first defended slavery and later defended Jim Crow. You're right. The Republicans joined them, by the way, in defending Jim Crow in the 1870s. You know, after Thaddeus Stevens, the radical Republican, was trashed, and the other radical Republican, Abraham Lincoln, was murdered. But, so we've had both parties were complicit in this right up till 65.
You like to cite facts. You like to cite your facts in historical perspective. Who was the only legislator that actually switched parties? There was only one, Strom Thurmond. You give me another example of Democrats turning to the Republican Party.
Why would any Democrat become a Republican, Julio? I mean, Strom Thurmond did because I said, why would any Democrat become a Republican? Strom Thurmond did because he was a racist. He was openly a racist.
Switched, and that the Democrats are now today's Republicans, and that's why.
No, I didn't say the Democrats are today's Republicans. I said the Republicans supported Jim Crow laws too. Both parties were racist up until 1965 when the Democrats repudiated it. The Republicans have yet to do that.
So what he's saying, the Republicans go ahead and agree that racism is okay?
I have not heard. I have not heard anybody repudiate. Well, yeah, okay.
I don't think that they need to. I mean, oh God.
Right. Okay. So you think it's just self-evident?
We're not racist. Okay.
All right. Julio Rivera, not racist, and I believe you're not racist, Julio. I believe that of you. ReactionaryTimes.com is his website. You can tweet him at it's Julio. Julio, thanks for dropping by.